In the following demonstrations, we shall perform typical operations involving the cutting of both timber and aluminium. It is strongly advised that you wear personal protective equipment in the form of safety goggles, hearing protection, and, where dust is a hazard, then appropriate breathing protection must be worn, and naturally you must observe all safety rules associated with rotating machinery. Note that only machined timber can be cut, which means that the machine is unsuitable for the cutting of logs or other irregular-shaped objects. When cutting used timber, it is very important to ensure that it is free of nails, screws, or any other metal objects. 135 millimeters is the maximum width of cut possible with this machine. Do not attempt to use the machine to cut wider material. Material thickness is limited to approximately 90 millimeters. Do not attempt to cut thicker material due to the blade limitation and the possible risk of overloading the machine's motor. Always consult the operator's manual for details concerning maximum material sizes in the various cutting configurations. Make sure that the side supports are attached before you cut material. Extra long material must be supported. This can be done by placing suitably sized packing or blocks at the end of the material. It is recommended, when cutting timber, that the dust collection bag be fitted as demonstrated. This will reduce the volume of sawdust in the atmosphere. Our first demonstration with timber will be a straight cut. Begin by marking off your material to the desired length. Next, we must make sure that the turn base is set to the 0-degree position and locked, and that the bevel angle is also set to the 0 position and the operating lever is locked. Make sure that there are no shavings or offcuts lying against the guide fence, which could cause an out-of-square condition, or which could be picked up by the blade and flung out of the machine at high speed. The timber is positioned onto the base and pressed squarely against the guide fence. The cutting line is aligned to the edge of the left-hand kerf board. Next, the blade is brought down and a check is made to ensure that the inside edge of the blade lines up with the outside edge of your cutting mark. Now we must clamp the timber to the base. Never, when making a cut, use your hands to secure work on the work table. Clamping should always be made on the good side of the work, not on the waste side. After clamping, recheck that the cut will be made in the desired position and readjust if necessary. We are ready to begin the cut, and now is the time to connect the main supply. This is also the time to don your personal protective equipment. Without starting the motor, bring the blade down and then raise it a few centimeters above the work. Keep a firm hold of the handle, as the arm will kick upward when you press the start trigger. Start the machine and allow time for the blade to come to full speed. Bring the blade carefully into contact with the material, and then apply steady pressure on the control arm. Ease up the pressure if you hear the motor slowing down during the cut. Allow the blade to cut fully through the material. Once the cut is made, release the start switch and wait for the blade to stop spinning. When the blade has stopped, allow the control arm to raise fully until the lock engages. Now switch off the mains power. At this time only is it safe to remove your work from the machine. In order to cut a mitre, rotate the turn base to the desired angle. Once you have set the mitre angle, then remember to secure the table locking clamp. Align your pre-marked material to the kerf board, and keep in mind that you want the blade to cut on the waste side of the line. Bring the blade to the work in order to check that the cut will be produced at the correct position. Once you are satisfied with the alignment, then clamp your work securely in place and recheck the alignment. The mains power can now be switched on, and the cut made by operating the machine in the same manner as previously described. Let us briefly overview some important points for setting your machine to produce bevel cuts. Before attempting a bevel cut, it is essential to ensure that the sub-fence is set all the way over to the left in order to provide sufficient blade clearance. When the bevel angle is set to maximum, that is, to 45 degrees, it may be necessary to reposition the locking devices on the clamp in order to provide clearance for the blade guard. Check to make sure that the blade and operating arm have full clearance and that they do not snag on any clamping devices. Next, loosely clamp the material in position. Now loosen the bevel lock and swing the arm over to the desired angle and lock it in place. If you have marked your material at the place where the bevel is to begin, then the blade must be brought down to the work and the outside edge of the cutting mark aligned to the inside edge of the blade. Secure the clamp and then switch the power on. When cutting a bevel, take care to maintain the pressure on the operating lever in line with the blade axis in order to prevent the blade from flexing or bending. Remember to make sure that the blade has stopped rotating before lifting the arm. If you know where the end of the bevel must be produced on your workpiece, then mark off this point and align it to the edge of the left-hand kerf board. Clamp the work in place. Power up the machine and then make the cut by operating the machine in the usual manner. We turn our attention to the cutting of aluminium. The first and very important point is that aluminium is cut using only a saw blade marked as being suitable for this material. Never use a wood blade for the cutting of aluminium. We shall explain how to fit any given blade in the next section. The Mitre Saw, fitted with the appropriate blade, is suitable for cutting and trimming standard flat-sided aluminium extrusions. This machine is, however, not designed for the cutting of round material due to the clamping constraints, nor for thick stock material due to the excess load that this places on the motor. The cutting of thin extrusion is aided by inserting timber or board packing of a suitable size into the extrusion in order to avoid distortion and blade snatching. When cutting very thin plate, use some scrap timber or board to make a sandwich. This is done to prevent distortion and snagging of the metal at the cutting point. For securing the work to the work table, wooden blocks are useful aids as they help spread the clamping pressure and also prevent the work surfaces from being marked. When cutting thicker sections, an application of paraffin to the cutting area will help prevent clogging of the blade, with aluminium particles and will also assist in producing a smooth cut. The procedure for cutting follows the same actions as for timber cuts, namely, allow the blade to reach full speed off the work, then bring it carefully onto the work. Apply sufficient pressure to maintain a smooth cutting action. Allow the blade to stop turning before raising the arm, and then switch off the machine at the power supply point.